Well, howdy. Welcome to Adventure in Art. My name is Ben Staley, your resident talking head. This one might be a little longer. I'm going to tell some stories. I brought some tea just to keep me warm, keep me energized, and you know, it might be a minute, so I thought that I should have some tea for this video. This is titled Why Lumix? Perhaps you use Lumix cameras, perhaps you are interested in them, perhaps you are a frequent viewer of this channel. There's a lot of reasons why maybe you're interested in this video. I'm going to tell you about my journey using Lumix cameras from the beginning and why I'm using them now. This is kind of A to B, soup to nuts, the whole shebang, the goods, the bads, the uglies, the indifference. Why? We have so many camera options nowadays. Cameras and lenses, this is like the golden age of creativity, of photography, of video. It's never been easier. There's never been more choices. There's never been better gear. Almost any camera you pick up nowadays, any modern camera, it's amazing. It's definitely better than anything that was out 5 years ago or 10 years ago or 20 years ago. It's a beautiful time. Whoa, that's why I need the tea. I got something caught in my throat. I was getting all excited, just getting worked up. I didn't even think about this intro. It's a beautiful, amazing time to be a storyteller. You don't have the excuse of not having good gear. And if you can't afford like the most latest, greatest brand new gear, save up and buy something used on eBay, on Craigslist, on KEH Camera, on a reseller online. Go to your local pawn shop, whatever. Anything from the last few years or decade is going to be good for you. Like if that's all you can afford, go out and start telling stories. I probably should have saved this part for the end. I have some notes here because, well, like I said, there's a lot to discuss. There's a lot to discuss. Why Lumix in this day and age with all these choices, with all these brands, with all this amazing gear? Why Lumix? T. I am primarily a filmmaker, a director and a cinematographer, occasionally a producer. Sometimes the work that I do for the Discovery Channel or History Channel or Nat Geo or that thing, they call you a producer, but really you're the director. Whatever, it doesn't matter. I mostly make unscripted TV and documentaries and things like that. Occasionally scripted TV, scripted movies, whatever. That's actually the big dream, is to direct a scripted film. That is my big dream and ambition and something I'm working very hard to move towards. But way back, a long time ago, see this gray in my beard? The first camera that I picked up and used professionally was called a DVX100 made by Panasonic. It was a tape-based mini DV camera. It had a Leica zoom lens on the front of it. It was notable because when it came out, it was the first camera, the first video camera to ever do 24p. So you could have that cinematic look. You didn't have like 30 interlaced frames. You had 24 progressive frames, boom, 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 solid frames, much like a motion picture film camera. So these were hot cameras. I started a little video business with a friend of mine, and we were doing messaging and short docs and things like that. The first thing I actually ever did with that was go out with a SWAT team into East LA and apprehending gang members at like 5 in the morning. Everybody had body armor on. There's little old me in the corner with a DVX100. So that was my first camera. I learned a lot. I learned about lenses with that Leica lens that was on the front of it. It wasn't until I picked up that camera that I learned one day that I could open up the aperture all the way and I could zoom in and compress the frame, and then the background would go soft and I would get this nice creamy bokeh and the subject would pop out. And I learned the physics of lenses with that camera. And then this new camera came out, the HVX200, which was slightly bigger lens. This was, I think, one of the very first solid state cameras. It was the evolution of that original HVX, and it took these things called P2 cards, and it had 2 slots for these big credit card sized but thicker cards. I think they came with 2 4-gig cards, and if you shot at like max resolution, you could only shoot for like 20 minutes, and then you would have to go to the other card, and then the cards were expensive, and I know we were always making short films and things with them, and somebody would have to take a full card and hurry up and download it to a hard drive, and then you'd go back and you'd swap, and you'd be swapping. If you shoot all day, you'd be swapping back and forth between cards. Spilled my tea. That camera was epic. I didn't own one. I had a lot of friends that had them, and we used them a lot to do some creativity. I was looking around on YouTube, and there's actually a trailer for a short film series that I directed a long time ago, like 2006, I think is when we shot this. I'm gonna put the link in the description. It's called Now. There's a little trailer shot with the HVX200. From there, we got an HPX500. This was a big body, like shoulder mounted, like news camera, but it used P2 cards, and it would have like an ENG lens on it. It had 4 slots. And we had 16 gig cards now, so you could record for like close to an hour on every card, and there was 4 of them, so you could shoot like most of a day and not have to like dump cards and things like that. It was a game changer. The cool thing about them was they shot in HD, which was big. You know, back the HVX was only standard def. Now we moved into HD, so you could do 30i interlaced full HD, or you could shoot 720 progressive, and you could do like 60p. So you could do slow motion in 720. You know, now we're like up to 4K, 6K, 8K, and but back then it was a big deal to be able to shoot like 720 HD in 60p. Man, I used that HPX500, that big shoulder mounted camera. I took it to the Middle East, shot short film there. I shot a ton of docs with it. I shot a ton of music videos way back then. I wish I had some of these I could show you, but I used that camera for years. It was amazing. Panasonic, all Panasonic cameras. I started this phase of my life where I started doing a lot of projects for the Discovery Channel, History Channel, Nat Geo, and stuff like that, and I wanted a small camera to carry around. And right about this time, Panasonic started up Lumix, and they were coming out with these GH cameras, which were, I believe, some of the very first mirrorless cameras. The Micro Four Thirds. Look at this. Look what I have here. Do you guys know what this is? This is a GH2. This is my first Lumix camera that I bought in the winter of 2011, right when this camera came out, and it was a hot item. They were hard to get when they first came out because they had really outstanding video features. I had to get on like a waiting list, and I remember when I actually got this, I was in Manitoba, Canada, way up in the north, filming Ice Road Truckers season 4, like one of the worst jobs I've ever had. Like, why would you want to sit in the cab of a semi for 18 hours a day with a chain-smoking, pill-popping racist? Nope, I would never ever do that again. I did a month of that. It was horrible. And I bought this camera. I took this thing all over the world. That was the year I got married. Took this on the honeymoon to Santorini, Greece, took it to Paris. I started shooting a ton of portraits with this because I was doing this unscripted TV, and I'm running into all these cool characters, and that's when I got really obsessed with taking documentary style portraits. In 2013, I got the GH3. It came out, it was all blacked out and cooler, had even better video features. Took that to Thailand. Took it out in the Bering Sea when I was filming Deadliest Catch. GH3 was awesome. And then the next year, the GH4 came out. I remember taking that to Italy. We did a long trip all through Italy for a summer. This is in the Cinque Terre region of Italy, and there was a storm coming in, and I remember being out there with my GH4. It had just come on the market, and I bought it right before the trip. I'm out there filming this incoming storm, and the locals are trying to get their boats out of the water. I'm right at the edge of the water, and this rogue wave came up and went completely over me and drenched me in my brand new GH4. And I remember running back to the Airbnb so that I could clean off the camera and rinse the salt water off of it. And I was just, I was super scared that my camera was going to be destroyed after getting drenched with salt water in like the first week of my summer-long trip. But you know what? The camera was totally fine. These little GH cameras have always been super sturdy, super robust, and just amazing for travel cameras. In 2015, I was commissioned to make a documentary, a feature-length documentary, and I wanted it to be mastered in 4K. And at that time, there wasn't any cameras on the market that would shoot internal 4K. And so I started that documentary with the GH4. Here is some footage from that documentary. I wanted more of a full frame look than the Micro Four Thirds, but I got a speed booster and was using full frame lenses on a speed booster, and that just gave me incredible low light performance, and it gave me this really cinematic shallow depth of field. And at the beginning of the doc, I shot only with the GH4. I went out to sea with the thing for the first couple of weeks of the documentary, and just got some really incredible footage. I shot that doc for well over a year, and then I moved into using a variety of different cameras. The GH4 was a big part of that documentary. There's a trailer to that doc on my website. It's called Starbound. And if you get on Vimeo and search Starbound, you'll also find the trailer, but I think you can find the entire documentary. So if you want to see what I've made, I believe it's out there. Around that time, I moved my photography into full frame cameras, and there wasn't a Lumix full frame camera on the market yet. So I was just shooting with other cameras, shot with some Nikon, shot with some Sony, started shooting with Leica. And then in 2017, I was hired to be a camera guy on this show called, what is the name of that show? There used to be this thing called YouTube Red, which was like the Netflix of YouTube. Like you had to have a subscription, and they had like higher end content that they actually paid for. Well, they did this show where they had all these kind of B-level celebrities and some YouTubers, like really popular YouTubers, all went to Peru to try and climb this mountain together. And it wasn't so much a competition, although they didn't all make it to the end. But it was more of a, like, we're gonna help each other climb this mountain. Steve-O was one of the guys, Chuck Liddell, a UFC fighter. There were some pretty big YouTubers, Sniper Wolf. None of them I really knew, and they weren't like from genres that I would look at. I didn't have a YouTube channel then, obviously. I kind of wish I had, because they were all out there like vlogging and doing stuff, and that was supposed to help the show. You can probably find that on YouTube, actually, trailers or some episodes or some stuff. What the heck is the name of that show? Why can't I remember it? I got this. I've done so much stuff. Let me go to my laptop here. This is embarrassing. Can you remember the show? I found it on my resume on my laptop. The Ultimate Expedition. Is that what it was? Do a search in YouTube for The Ultimate Expedition when you get off of this. The camera we used on that show was the Panasonic VariCam, which is like a big body, big chunky, very heavy, cinema grade Panasonic camera. Like at that time, I think the best cinema camera you could get outside of like an ARRI or a RED, like a really high end. But these are very expensive cameras, super robust, stripped down, very minimal, very professional, outstanding cameras. The unfortunate thing is they were heavy, and we had to climb this mountain with the cast. The coolest night I had on that show is when I was sleeping at like 16 or 17,000 feet. I went up and slept alone by myself, and I had a VariCam on a tripod with a 1,000mm lens, and I was my job was to do some long lens shots of some of the cast as they were trying to climb this mountain. Super cool. And then the next year, I went back to shooting and producing this show called Deadliest Catch for Discovery Channel. And for the first time ever, we started using VariCams on Deadliest Catch in the wheelhouse, not out on deck because they're too expensive. But I was the kind of wheelhouse producer, DP of the boat that I worked on, and so I used a VariCam in the wheelhouse. And in fact, I am the first person that took a VariCam out to sea and tested it out. And I did this like before the show really kicked off. I went out with one of the boats and some of the cast and a member of the press, and we went out for a day and did a bunch of filming. Time went on. I started this YouTube channel. I think in 2021, Lumix came out with the BS1H, which was a little box camera. and I got very interested in this and the form factor and these box cameras, and I just fired off an email to Lumix and they responded, and strangely enough, they knew me from Deadliest Catch and from using the VariCam. That was a big kind of press moment for them, and it was cool to have their cameras on such a big show. And so they responded and they were like, hey, do you want to try out one of these BS1Hs? And so they sent me one over and I used it for several months. I shot a bunch of kind of personal projects. I used it on the YouTube channel as kind of my video camera for several shoots. And that kind of started my relationship in the modern era with Lumix. Last year, they reached out and asked if I wanted to try this cinema package that they had, which was a couple of S1Hs, just the hybrid body, and some Atlas anamorphic lenses. And so they sent me that package and I shot several projects with that, one of which I've made a video about. You can see that music video on my website. And there's another project that I've completed editing. I just haven't released it yet, but it's coming out pretty soon, and I'm probably gonna have a BTS video about that. But I really loved using the S1H. I loved using the anamorphic lenses and found the image to just be amazing. It's the first time, you know, the BS1H and the S1H were the first time I'd used full frame Lumix cameras, and I just found them to be amazing, really similar to using the GH cameras back in the day. I just really liked the features that they had and the exposure tools and the image I was getting out of it. I used these cameras and lenses for a couple months, and then I got a job in Africa, and this is this spring. My friends at Lumix reached out and they said, hey, do you want to take a GH6 to Africa? I was planning on just shooting film in Africa for a couple months, but I thought, well, heck, I'll take a GH6. Boom, look at this, GH6. I still have this GH6 that they lent me. I've given all the zoom lenses they gave me back, but I still have this same GH6 that I took to Africa. And this is kind of what I'm using to film most of my YouTube videos these days, especially when I'm out doing a photo shoot. GH6, GH2. So I took this GH6 to Africa and had it for 9 weeks there, shot a ton of wildlife, landscapes, photos, video, and it just kind of rekindled my love for these cameras. The form factor, the functionality. I just really, really loved using this camera in Africa. Then they reached out and said, hey, we have this new G camera coming out, the G9 Mark II. This was top secret. I had to sign an NDA and everything, but they were like, would you like to be one of the people to go test this new camera out months before it's even on the market? I said, well, heck yeah. And so I went to Alaska with the G9 Mark II before it was even released and spent a week tromping around Alaska, shooting wildlife, shooting landscapes, photo, video, everything. You guys have seen those videos recently on the channel. Can you guys hear that? There's like a weed blower or some kind of gardener or somebody outside. Are you hearing that? I hope this isn't totally screwing up my video. Should I just wait? They can't be doing this all day. And it's really spoiled me is they have this thing called 6K. Oh my goodness, did that thing start again? Okay, I started talking again and then it started up again right outside the window. But now it's faded away, so I feel like we can get back to the video. Sorry about that, folks. Yeah, let's do it. So, went to Africa, went to Alaska, shot a bunch of stuff with the G cameras, GH6, G9 Mark II, came back. Lumix asked me if I wanted to become an ambassador for them. I didn't know what that meant. We had a discussion. I thought about it. I said, heck yeah, I want to be an ambassador. And it's been amazing, actually. The coolest thing is they've been sending me around the country to do workshops and to do slideshows and share some of my films and some video and tell stories and talk about adventures and meet other creators, other photographers, other filmmakers, other people like you. And I've been doing that off and on for the last couple of months. Went to New York, went to Chicago, went to Vegas, went to Seattle, went a few other places. It's been super rad. Oh, should I just wait till he totally goes away? I feel like you can't really hear that. I'm sorry, you guys. Anyways, now I'm a Lumix ambassador and it's super cool. Does this mean I can only use Lumix cameras from here on out and I have strict rules? No, it doesn't mean that at all. I can use any darn camera I want. I'm super happy to only use Lumix cameras though. Like, I've really grown to love these cameras. Let me tell you a few things that I love about my S5 IIX that I've been using exclusively for the past, shoot, 3 months now. I've had this camera for 3 months. Here's what makes it stand out, and here's why I believe that these S5 II cameras are the best hybrid still and video camera on the market. Open gate shooting. This thing shoots in 6K open gate. I'm shooting this in 6K open gate right now. So here's the whole frame, okay? But 4K will fit in the middle here. Like, I can take a chunk of this, 16:9, it goes right in the middle. So I can, boom, I can move out, I can reframe, I can zoom in. I've been using this camera now a couple months and I'm just super spoiled by this 6K open gate. And when I'm doing a photo shoot and I'm taking stills with the S5, I use this GH6, which I still have. It doesn't belong to me, it belongs to Lumix, but they haven't asked for it back yet. I use this as my video camera to capture me taking photos so I can make videos for you guys. Well, this thing shoots in 5K open gate. So this open gate shooting has just freaking spoiled me to have all that real estate and be able to punch in and reframe and zoom in and zoom out. And it's just, it gives you all these creative options that I just love. The body style of all the current latest models are all the same. The G9 has the same body and the same button placement as the S5 II. So that's amazing. You can easily switch between them and everything is set up the same, everything works the same, they feel the same in your hand. There's a consistency there. Also, they don't have a lot of buttons and features and things in the way that are just kind of fluff, that are just sort of consumer things. I feel like these cameras are designed for professionals. They have professional features like exposure tools. Let me make sure I don't miss these. Luminance spot meter. So you can select a spot in the frame and it'll give you the exact exposure value. So you can just make sure you have optimal exposure. They also have histograms and waveforms and all those features. They have this thing called Realtime LUT, where there's a LUT library. You can load in 10 LUTs and you can switch between them. You can apply those LUTs to still images where the JPEGs that it pumps out will have that color profile attached. That's pretty dope. And you can also apply it to video footage. Say if you're delivering for a client or you just don't want to do deep color grading, you just want to look on the footage right from the get-go, use real-time LUT, you just apply it in camera. It's super rad. You can also apply color profiles from other cinema cameras and have it match. So if I was shooting, say, with a red camera, I could apply a LUT that was the color profile for a red camera or an RE camera or a Sony camera, and my S5 IIX could be set up to match those cameras if I'm doing like a multicam shoot. This is epic. There's some pretty cool features too, like live view composite, which I am gonna get out and actually do a video with. I've been kind of composing, writing it in my head, thinking about what I want to do to showcase live view composite, but I just feel like it's a super cool feature. It's like doing a long exposure in increments. So you just have you can do things exposure wise with live view composite that you can't do with like a regular long exposure. And I feel like that is a creative tool that I certainly haven't tapped into, and I want to. Those are some of the reasons why I really like Lumix. On top of that, the lens I'm using is a 50mm S prime. Now I'm kind of a lens snob, okay? So yes, I like my Leica lenses. I like my Sigma art lenses. The L mount partnership with Leica and Sigma, and recently Blackmagic joined it. So that is super cool to me. Lumix works hand in hand with Leica. They develop lenses together. They're working on sharing camera technology. I think this is only going to increase in the future, and we're going to see some pretty cool things coming. I hope. Nobody's telling me, but I'm just hearing rumblings. I'm hearing hints. I think that that's cool that they work so closely with Leica. Obviously, if you watch this channel, you know that I love Leica cameras. Even if I don't think they're always the best everyday cameras, I'm a big fan of Leica. Still have my M6. I love my M6. I love my 50mm Summicron. The fact that Lumix and Leica work so closely together is rad. Also Sigma. Sigma is part of the L mount alliance, and I love me some Sigma art lenses. But On this camera now, on the S5 II filming me, I have a 50mm S prime on there. Now, I will be really honest here. When I first saw the S primes, I didn't use them. I thought, okay, 1.8 lenses, they look pretty inexpensive. How good can they be? Now, I've used the 35, I've used the 50, and I recently just used the 85. And these lenses are epic, and I want them all. These lenses have blown me away with the quality, the sharpness, and just the form factor. They're light. They're all about the same size. The front diameter is the same. They're really easy to swap between them. They're really easy to share filters. S primes are amazing. Lumix cameras are great video cameras, right? Like that's what everybody thinks. They're sort of video centric. Typically people who are video content makers or filmmakers, they gravitate towards Lumix cameras. What about for stills? I was in Chicago this last weekend and I had my S5 IIX and I borrowed an 85mm 1.8 and I went out behind the camera store that I was visiting and I did some portraits of this lady. And I came back in, she left, and I came back in and I was talking to one of the guys in the store and he was like, yeah, he didn't really know much about Lumix cameras. So he's like, they're good for video, right? And I said, well, they're pretty good for photos. And so I had my camera and I showed him the screen and I showed him a couple of the shots I had taken. He said, where'd you do that? I said, right behind your store. He goes, no way, with this? Yeah, these cameras are epic for photography. And I've been using this thing mostly for my photography for the last 2 months, nonstop. I've done dozens of shoots. Here's a couple shots. I met the Westcott rep at one of the camera stores that I visited, and he lent me this thing, this Westcott speed light and this little trigger. This is the only trigger, this is the FJX3. This is the only trigger on the market where you can do high-speed sync with Lumix. And so I've had this for a couple months now, and I've been doing a ton of photo shoots with strobes and using high-speed sync. And I'm gonna make a whole video about that coming out soon. Here's a tease of that. Super epic to be able to shoot at a 1/8,000th of a shutter out in broad sunlight and get super cool shots. I'm all in with these Lumix cameras. I want for nothing photographically. I haven't tested this thing out like in depth for my filmmaking, and I'm in the process of kind of developing, trying to find a couple documentary projects I can shoot with this S5 IIX to really test it out and to really see where it sits with me. But so far, I just love it, and I love everything I'm seeing. I love the image quality. I love the controls. I love the 6K open gate shooting. Amazing. What do I want from Lumix? I really want a high megapixel photocentric camera like an S1 Mark II, and I'm sure that's coming. I don't know when, but I'm really looking forward to having a little bit more real estate in my megapixels. Now, 24 megapixels is plenty, but I'm greedy, and I would like to be able to have a 60 megapixel or something bigger than that. I'm sure that's coming maybe next year. I also would love to see a more dedicated video camera, something a little bigger, like in the form factor of maybe like a C70 or something, something that had internal NDs, maybe had some built-in audio inputs, like a XLR mini plugs or something like that. Maybe in the form factor of like the cube cameras, like the BS1H, something a little bigger. I hope they're developing that. I don't know if they are or not, but I would love to see something like that. This S5 IIX is basically like a VariCam in your pocket. In fact, it's better than a VariCam. You could do solid state recording. You can record ProRes RAW with the darn thing. You could shoot a feature film with this camera. And who knows, maybe I will. I have made a playlist and I put it in the description, and that's all the videos that I've shot with Lumix cameras. So it's all the photography and all the video, everything with Lumix that I've made on this channel is in a playlist down below. So if you're interested, you want to see more stills, more video, that's where you look. Africa, Alaska, lots of photo shoots, all that stuff is down there. Whoa, that was kind of long and epic. Wow, I need another cup of tea. Did I miss anything? Did I explain myself well? these kinds of videos are hard for me. I'd much rather be out taking pictures, going on a hike, having an adventure, that kind of thing. If I didn't cover anything, if I didn't explain something well enough, just leave me a comment. I will reply to that. I'll respond. Meanwhile, don't get too concerned about the camera that you have, honestly. Most cameras nowadays are pretty good. I reiterate what I said at the beginning. If you can't afford a Lumix camera, that's fine. Get the camera you can afford. Sharpen your skills. Hone your eye. It's you that takes the picture. It's you that films the movie, okay? Use what you have. Make whatever you can. Work on your skills. Eventually, you'll get better and better gear, and you'll have everything that you ever wanted. That's it, folks. Thanks for tuning in to my long, rambly video. I'm going to get out there and take some pictures myself. We'll see you soon.